It's on.
We leave it at a first, but we're doing the
Call the roll already? Okay, you need to.
Call the order of the Coastal Protection Restoration Authority Board meeting Wednesday, March 19th, 2025 at 9:30 at the State Capitol Building, House Committee Room 1, 900 North 3rd Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And with that, we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam, would you call a roll, please?
Chairman Dove.
Present.
Mr. Davidson.
Present.
Mr. Garrett.
Here.
Mr. Bourne.
Here.
Mr. Alford.
Here.
Lieutenant Governor Nungesser.
Here.
President Jewell.
Present.
Congressman Gao.
Here.
Mr. Jordan.
Here.
Mr. Bourgeois.
Here.
Mr. Hidalgo.
Here.
Mr. Carville.
Here.
Mr. Lane.
Here.
Representative Zarang. Senator Henskins. You have a quorum.
And thank you. And we have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda. Motion. Made by Dwayne Bourgeois, second by Mr. Hidalgo. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Any public comments on the agenda? Any objections to the motion? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Approval of the minutes. Motion to approve the minutes. Mr. Hidalgo, second by Mr. Alford. All in favor? All opposed? Seeing none. Old business. Any board members would like to say, have any announcements that they would like to discuss? Any board members? See it done. We'll move to implementation update. Mr. Glenn Ledet, Executive Director of the CPRA, Coastal Protection Restoration Authority. Mr. Ledet.
Thank you, Chairman Dove and members of the board. We have a really good implementation update for you today. Got a really critical restoration project in Plaquemines Parish, and we've got some really good updates on our Morganza to the Gulf system, along with a host of other things that are going on in the last last few weeks over here at CPRA. And so with that, I'll jump right in and really showcase, as always, just the number of active projects that we have ongoing at any given time at CPRA. As you can see in this update, we've got 108 active projects, 39 in construction, 65 in engineering and design, and 4 in planning. And so as you've noticed, a number of these from the last month's update have moved over from engineering and design into construction. And so we're always proud of that. Obviously, you'll see through our draft annual plan and the final annual plan we present next month that we're still working to continue to increase that percentage of construction work that we do to put projects on the ground for us, the great citizens of coastal Louisiana. With that, some of those projects that moved over, we'll touch on some of those in Morganza to the Gulf, one of which is in St. Charles Parish. The Mont's Pump Station moved over from engineering and design to construction, and I'd like to kick it to President Jewell to give us a quick update on that one.
Thank you, Glenn. Yes, yesterday we opened bids on our Mont's Pump Station number 1. As you know, there's several changes happening in the watershed within the vicinity of the West Shore Hurricane Protection Levee, and we were excited to open bids. They came in actually below our engineer's estimate, which is not something you see very much anymore, but we were excited to open those, and we appreciate the support from the CPRA on that project.
Thank you very much, President Jewell.
Thank you. And so with that, we'll just transition into our restoration update for this month. And so for this month, we'd like to update you on a really large-scale marsh creation and ridge restoration project that's ongoing in Plaquemines Parish, and that is the Grand Bayou Ridge and Marsh Restoration Project. And so with that, we've got some really good video footage there I'll let you look at. And so just to give you a little background, this is a massive 500-acre plus marsh creation and forested ridge project that's ongoing in Plaquemines Parish right now. And so you could see the marsh buggies that are building those containment dikes that we'll utilize to pump that new sediment into. And so with that, oftentimes you'll see us build these large containment dikes, one of which will be converted into a forested ridge. And so this is a critical project. That forested ridge runs parallel to the Plaquemines Parish community, to the NOV and Mississippi River levee system, to provide both habitat and resiliency to that community. And then in front of it will be that 500-acre plus marsh creation effort. And so as you know, we talk a lot about every single month. A lot of these projects, we utilize multiple sources of funding. This is one of those. And so with that, you can see our federal partner there, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, along with the design work and engineering and construction that CPRA and our team did with Baird and Delta Coast. This is a QPRA project that also utilized state surplus dollars to build an even bigger project. So we're always looking at ways to leverage that funding. This is one of those great examples. And so we were able to take state surplus, pair it with our QPRA project, and build a bigger and better project. The total budget of this project is close to $56 million. But really a great project for Plaquemines Parish in that Lake Hermitage area in the Barataria Basin. This will be going on throughout the remainder of this year, and we hope to complete that project by December of this year. And so Weeks Marine was awarded this project, and they are beginning to construct those containment dikes. You'll see this show up in our annual plan as well. But it's really one of these great critical projects that provide both habitat, marsh creation, as well as resiliency for the communities of Plaquemines Parish. Yes.
And I'd like to go ahead and welcome President Hinckley, who's here. We've been working with us on a lot of projects. Thank you for coming, President Hinckley, and working with us on this project and others.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you, President Hinckley. And this is just to kind of give you an idea that the roughly over 10,000 linear feet of forested ridge, approximately 2 miles. So just really excited to kind of showcase the abilities to build these resiliency and habitat features in with our marsh creation projects. So with that, we will transition into our hurricane protection and flood risk reduction update for this month. And so really wanted to focus on two big features of work that are ongoing in our Morganza to the Gulf system. And so if you remember last month, we broke ground on the largest feature of that critical Morganza to the Gulf 98-mile levee system, and that's the Homo Navigation Canal Lock Complex. We broke ground with the governor, really a phenomenal event. And so I want to give you a quick update on that. Before I do, I know it's near and dear to Chairman Dove's heart. Do you want to say a few things about how critical this project is for the region?
Yeah, well, this project started some time back, and of course, after me, chairman of the levee board, Mr. Alford, and also chairman of the governor's advisory board. It's a long time coming, a lot of concerted efforts. It's just great to see this project. It's a lock system that's environmental along with navigation and gives a safe harbor at the same time. But with that, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Alford, who is the reason the project is where it's at today.
Well, I don't know about that. I appreciate it, Mr. Dove. Thank God for Restore Act dollars and the CPRA. Yeah, we're real excited. This is, this project's a linchpin of the entire system. It stops salt water. Everybody is excited about catching speckled trout in the intercoastal behind some of their houses, but we hope that stops. You got so much salt water coming up that canal, and the fresh water that does come through the parish just washes through. So having that wall there, and I think we probably have another 3.5 years left on this project to have it built, it'll be huge. to restore the entire system, to have that fresh water blocked and, spread throughout the system and have that salt water stop coming up the canal will be tremendous. And so we're real excited about that, and it's coming along good. Again, thank God for Restore Act dollars. I don't know where we came up with that kind of money to put it together, but we're really thrilled about it. It'll be awesome. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Alford.
Thank you, Mr. Dove.
Mr. Alford, on all your time, and there's a lot of concerted effort with the levee board, locals, CPRA, and everyone else to make this happen. And it's 110-foot gates, 800-foot chamber, 24-foot on the unprotected side. To one day, if we build the levees to that height, and I believe the Corps is aimed to do that. It's also to minus 24, so we can deepen the channel to 20 feet navigable. It's going to help the economic stimulus for Terrebonne Parish too, as well as safe harbor, and allows a vessel, if a vessel's coming in for a hurricane and they're on one engine or something, and they're coming in, they're moving real slow. We can leave the gate open to about a +8 on the unprotected side, whereas right now at about a 4 we got to close it. Well, actually, that gate we close about less than a 2. So now it'll help vessels get into safe harbor, and as 8 foot of water is quite a bit of water to try to get these vessels in when they trying to get ahead of the hurricane. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Dove, Mr. Alford. Yeah, and so you could see the footage there, the ongoing work that's being done. And so, as Chairman Dove said, this is a 110-foot wide clear width sector gate. And so you've got, lot complex. So you've got sector gates on both the inland and Gulf side that help to build that, as well as that chamber. And so you could see that work going on there. Some of the activities that are going on, you've got the Gulf side sector gate. A lot of the battered piles for that foundation are being driven. You've got 68 vertical piles that already have been installed to the approximate tip elevation for the design. 18 are ongoing, so it's a ton of activity there. You've got an operations area that's being built. The nose piers that are part of that complex are being constructed as well, along with the access trestle and then the dredging work that'll be going on. So a lot of activity that's going on, and you can see some of those pictures that were taken by Terrebonne Levee District and our outreach and engagement team that visited the site recently. We've also got some drone video footage you could see of that complex. And so for those not familiar, you can see the Bubba Dove gate that's in that position, and then the sector gate complex will go right next to it. But you can see all of the equipment that's been mobilized and that work that's going on there. As you see in those bullets, in addition to that gate complex, you've got the completion of that operations area, the control building, and the 175-foot access bridge for that.
And what else is unique about it, the Bubba Dove floodgate, which is 250-foot opening, will remain in place, open and close depending on the tides. So if you do have a tow that cannot access the 110-foot wide, then they can open up the gate and allow a vessel probably up to 230, 225 feet to enter into Terrebonne Parish to do work or whatever their purpose is. So that's another unique thing about it. And during this, the Terrebonne Parish will stay under protection of an 18-foot floodgate, which is 18 foot above sea level.
Yeah, great points, Chairman Dove. And so the footage that we're showing you here today is actually from phase 2 of this project. And so just to refresh the board, this is a 3-phase project. Phase 1 was all of the dredging work and mitigation that was done in advance of that. And so that was completed back in 2023. And then this phase 2 is really kind of the biggest components of this lot complex. And so this is roughly $320+ million. As you saw in that footage, we're approximately 20% complete. complete of 4+ year projects. We've got about 3.5 years, as Mr. Alford said, left, and it's going really well. After this is complete, we will be moving into phase 3, where we will be building the bulkheads for dewatering, as well as the improvements to the Bubba Dove Gate to get to 100 years. So this is really the biggest component of the 3-phase system and the biggest piece of that Morganza to the Gulf project. And with that, similar to what you saw on other projects in previous implementation update, this lock complex obviously has a lot of partners. So as Mr. Alford said, our funding source is primarily Restore with some state dollars. We obviously work extremely close with Terrebonne Levee District, who's managing construction, and Mr. Alford and his team. Sea Level is the contractor that was awarded the project, and are doing a really good job at construction. And then we got a very large engineering team. In addition to CPRA and TLCD, we have contractors there doing a great job. You've got Aptum, GIS, Delta Coast, T. Baker Smith, Tetra Tech, and many others that have contributed to this project. So it's a real partnership between the private sector, the public sector, and all of our partners. And then in addition, the Corps of Engineers is really helpful in all of the review process that we did through getting this approved. And this will, of course, count as working kind credit for our 35% non-federal cost share for this large Morganza to the Gulf federal project. So really a great win for the state and for the communities in Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish. And then in addition to the HNC lock complex, we wanted to update the board and the public on the additional work that's ongoing at Morganza to the Gulf, primarily on the levee improvement side. And so just last month, we had a site visit with the Corps of Engineers on the critical Reach A that the Corps is constructing. And you see Mr. Alford, myself, and others there with Colonel Jones and Durand Elsie. And so I know, Mr. Alford, this is near and dear to your heart, so I'll let you take a moment to express your
All right, I'm not going to
gratitude.
say what I said there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, unfortunately, the Corps is a little slower than we would like. In the process, what we've learned, I got a bunch of little laughs here and there, right? But anyway, in the process, we figure out how to work with it. And this was the last stretch of Morganza to have connectivity to Bayou Black, about 5 to 6 miles. Well, the Corps has broke ground and is in the process of building 3 miles and openings on either side. So we're always looking for an opportunity to be able to participate with the Corps in the process of building this project. And so I found out the definition of an emergency. Okay, an emergency is not just because a storm hits the Gulf, so we can declare an emergency and start building. You have to be in a cone. Although when you're in a cone, when they allow you to pull the trigger and construct what you can under the emergency, it doesn't help you for that particular emergency. It just triggers that emergency to take place for you to build part of your project. And so we are building on either side of the Corps' project. There are 3 miles that they are building. They are building about 1,500 feet at about 3 foot tall. So we're already planning on going over them after they get through so we can pick up the 3 foot to about 7 foot. So I'll almost leave it at that without going into any more particulars, but y'all get the idea. And so we're always looking to work with and around when we have to get this project in place. The one thing that everybody seems to forget are the people that flood in the process of some of this bureaucracy. And so we've learned to work around that and use what we have with the CPRA to put that in place. And that's what we're doing here. And it's working out. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Alford.
And I want to say this about Mr. Alford. I mean, for years, he pushed it, never gave up in Washington, New Orleans. And so it does show, keep pushing the Corps. And you can expedite them to an extent because, thanks to Mr. Alford, he did get this this Reach A, which is our last tie-in, at least moving. We didn't get everything we wanted, but the Corps it's Corps money, and they are constructing 3 miles of our system, which started about 18 years ago. So with that, Tony, great job. But I want to tell everyone out there, just, always keep pushing the Corps, because you can move them. So with that, go, Mr. Ledet.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Dove, Mr. Alfred. Yeah, we had a really good, impassioned, passionate meeting with Colonel Jones, and really got to see the amount of progress that's made there. And then in addition, as you said, the tie-in there that the state and Terrebonne Levee District are doing to tie into the work there. So it's really good to see that last remaining piece of the western side that's being completed. And then we have obviously plans to continue that. We've obviously got work ongoing with Mr. Bourgeois and his team on the eastern side for those remaining tie-ins there on Reach 3B and others. And so really good to see all of that movement take place. We've got some video footage that we took there so that everyone can see the amount of work that's ongoing. And so you could see there in that bullet, this is the construction of over 3 miles of earthen levee in Terrebonne Parish for Reach A. That's over there sort of west of Terrio in the upper Dularge area. And then this segment eventually ties in near the intercoastal on that western side. And so continuing to work with the Corps on the additional reaches, particularly these large-scale navigation structures that will eventually be built along the intercoastal on both the west and east side, and all of those water control structures and floodgates that will be tied into that.
I think on the north side, there's an archaeological halt at this point on the north side of the intercoastal.
Yes, so there's still some additional permitting and cultural resources that has to be done. But on that southern piece, I believe construction has been completed, and then tying into that work that the Corps is doing. So it was good to see that. Really nice day, and excited to have that site visit with the Corps of Engineers and get them down to see the team. And so Justin Reeves Construction was awarded that project, and you see there that is the component that the Corps is leading, and then Terrebonne Levee District and CPRA are doing the other reaches. We've got some additional improvements that are being designed on Reach I and H2 and H3, and moving to construction there. And then I believe Reach L flood wall bids were opened yesterday, so just a ton of movement across the board on the Morganza to the Gulf levee system, working with Mr. Bourgeois and his team on Reach 3B and other areas there on the eastern side. And so we'll continue to update you on this, but wanted to just update you. Had a good visit with the Corps last month on Reach A, and that's their first federal levee piece that they're constructing. And so good to have that site visit. And so with that, we had an interview.
The Hurricane Protection Project is a large-scale flood protection system safeguarding South Louisiana's coastal communities in Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish. It also plays a vital role in coastal restoration and ecosystem sustainability by helping to preserve Louisiana's fragile wetlands that create natural storm protection and sustain our invaluable fisheries.
It's a 98-mile system of levees, floodgates, and environmental structures that will ultimately provide a 1% level of risk reduction for storm surge.
So we got 300,000 people right here in this area, and Morganza to the Gulf helps protect those people.
The project has been in development for decades with a mix of local, state, and federal funding. But significant progress has been made in recent years, with portions of the system already providing protection.
We took off and started building, and we built roughly 3 or 4 miles at a time. We got permits for it, and we built, roughly 90-something miles of levee system, and that's why we hadn't flooded in a while.
CPRA's partnership with Terrebonne Levee and Conservation District, along with other levee districts and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, will accelerate progress and upgrade levees to meet federal standards.
Both the state and locals have gone through and worked to develop an interim level of protection, but eventually we're going to get these levee systems, these gates in place to provide a 1% level of risk reduction.
The keystone of the Morganza to the Gulf is the Homa Navigation Canal Lock Complex. Currently under construction, this structure is over 20 feet tall and 400 feet long and will provide flood protection, salinity control, freshwater distribution, and navigation control for the region.
The Homan Navigation Canal Lock Complex is going to be another critical component of this system, which will allow for safe passage.
H&C lock is huge. You know, it not only stops salt water from coming in the system, but it's our major waterway to the Gulf of Mexico. And what it does is it stops the fresh water from leaving the parish.
For residents, the Morganza to the Gulf Hurricane Protection System is much more than just levees and floodgates. It represents security, economic stability, and the survival of their way of life.
But there's a lot more comfort in Terrebonne Parish that their businesses will thrive.
The amazing partnership that we have here in South Louisiana alongside CPRA, Terrebonne Levee and Conservation District, is the secret element that enables us to be able to deliver the largest civil works program for a district within the Corps of Engineers just here alone in South Louisiana because of its geostrategic importance for the nation.
Yeah, we appreciate the time Mr. Alford and Colonel Jones spent last month on that site visit, and then making videos like this help us to showcase to the public, you know, how critical these projects are and just the continued work. And so we appreciate that and appreciate the work that the outreach engagement team did to put this together.
And with engineering and the construction, which is about, the construction is about $325, it's about a $350 million phase of this. It still have some more to go, but it's $350 million, so.
Yes.
It's a great project.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman Dove. So with that, we'll move on and hit some of the additional updates that we've had over the last month on a variety of planning activities as well as outreach activities before we wrap up today. And so the first of this is just to remind everybody about our draft fiscal year 2026 annual plan. And so if you recall, we presented this draft to the CPRA board back in January, and that has been out for public comments. That public comment will close on March 22nd, 3 days from now. And so we encourage anyone that has the time to look at this and provide us feedback. As you can see there, we take public comments by email at coastal@la.gov or online at our comment portal, which is available at ap26.coastal.la.gov. And so in addition to that, we can also receive comments by mail at our address there listed on the slide. But as always, we encourage everyone to make comments, and please get that critical feedback in. And then we will be back next month in April to present that draft final fiscal year 2026 plan to the CPRA board for adoption so that we can move to the legislature. So thank you for your time in reviewing that every single year, and that is critical to our program. In addition to that, as we mentioned in January and as well as last year, we have kicked off really the state's first Atchafalaya Basin Master Plan. And so with that, our public project solicitation phase ended at the end of February. As you can see there, we conducted a number, actually 4 in-person meetings as well as virtual webinars, had over 100 attendees, so had really good attendance there, and then had upwards of 23 projects that were submitted with that bulk in the hydrologic restoration realm. And so got a lot of good feedback. You can see the different types of projects. Our team that's working on this is working through those. This is a multi-year master plan, is obviously the state's first in the Atchafalaya Basin, and is really critical. And so we're excited to see that continue to progress. In addition to that, we will be meeting with the Atchafalaya Basin Commission at the state legislature to update them on this master plan process. And so just want to update the board on that, and then we'll continue to give updates periodically on this master planning effort. And then in addition to that, want to update the board on a couple activities down in Thibodaux. The first of those is Nichols' first Louisiana Restoration Generation Coastal Summit. And this was something that was hosted at Nichols. This was really born to try to get students engaged in careers in coastal engineering, coastal science, and really just the coastal protection and restoration industry. And so really excited to see that. CPRA had a table there to explain to students and other members of the community the work that everyone in this industry does. And so exciting to see that type of work go on. Again, that was the first at Nichols, and so excited to see that turn out. You can see some of our partners like Ducks Unlimited, the Water Institute were there. And so we'll continue to have our outreach and engagement team at activities like that. But really excited to see that. And in addition to that, we've got a lot of progress happening at the Nichols Coastal Center. And so you could see some pictures there provided by Lacey Melanson, the executive director of the Coastal Center down in Nichols. A lot of good movement working towards completing that project. And so, just a reminder, the Governor's Office of Coastal Activities, as well as our Thibodeau Regional Office, will eventually move into that building along with a number of our other partners. And so should have a ribbon cutting later this year on that great effort. So excited to see that progress. Really thanks to Lacey, our project engineer, Rudy Semino, as well as facility planning, and then the contractors, Ratcliffe and Design, DDG, that have done the work there. And so excited for that ribbon cutting that will be coming up later this year. And in addition to that, I want to update you on a couple activities that are coming up next week and beyond. The first of those is actually tomorrow, and that is the Port Wonder ribbon cutting. And so this is a great facility that's going to be constructed in Lake Charles. It will actually house an education center that's going to be owned by Wildlife and Fisheries. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Garrett to kind of talk a little bit about how critical this project and important it is, and looking forward to tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ledet. Yes, this is something that the department's very excited about. It's a project that we've been working on construction in conjunction with the Children's Museum of Southwest Louisiana. We're going to be able to provide synergies and make this really an epicenter for the region for kids to come get educated. It's going to feature touch tanks, aquaria, interactive exhibits. It's really going to be a first-class and cutting-edge facility, and we're really excited to get this thing open and let the kids come and see it. This was funded through the Recreational Use Deepwater Horizon funding. I think we dedicated $7 million to it. A lot of that went to construction, and then we'll be operating it there to provide for recreational opportunities and use and education for kids. We also have a fishing pier that's part of this, so there's going to be opportunities for people to go and fish there, as well as for us to engage in fishing outreach. So a really good project. We're excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Garrett. And as you said, CPRA is happy to support, along with the Louisiana trustees and the LA TIG, on funding for this. So excited to see that ribbon cutting coming up. And then in addition to that, I want to update you on the other big hurricane protection project that we have with the Corps of Engineers. That is the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain Levee and Hurricane Protection Project, along with the mitigation component, the river reintroduction into Maurepas Swamp. And so we will house our first open house with St. John Parish and St. Charles and the Corps of Engineers and others to update everyone on those activities. We will start doing this regularly, as there's just a ton of work going on in the area. Really exciting to see, and then really kind of talk about all of those activities and the impacts to the community. So excited to see that. This will be the first one. It's Thursday, March 27th, down in Reserve there. And so excited to see that. I know working with President Hotard and President Jewell on this effort has been really good, and we'll continue to do that along with the Pontchartrain Levee District. And so excited to see all of that activity there in those communities, and we'll continue to engage with the Corps on these open houses to update everyone on the ongoing work.
Yes, and President Jacqueline Hotard from St. John Parish is here. Thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to working with you on this and other projects. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. And then another activity next week, we will have the Governor's Advisory Commission meeting. That'll be Wednesday, March 26th at the Water Institute building there, chaired by Mr. Alford. And so looking forward to that meeting and giving an update to the Governor's Advisory Coastal Commission. And then finally, a couple of updates that'll be happening in May. And so the first of those is our annual Coastal Day. That will be at the Louisiana Legislature on Monday, May 12th. And so excited to see that that take place and working with the Louisiana Legislature on all this work. And so we'll have activities throughout the day, and we'll update you on that agenda next month. But looking forward to that and hearing from Chairman Dove, the governor, and Colonel Jones. So excited for that. And then finally, we have our State of the Coast Conference, which will be coming up May 20th through 22nd at the Ernest Memorial Convention Center in New Orleans. And so that's that 3-day conference that occurs every other year to really update everyone on all the good work that is ongoing in Louisiana, across the coast, as well as beyond across the Gulf Coast. That is sponsored by CRCL and put on by them. So really a great forum for CPRA, all of our partners, and the industry. And so excited to see that and can't wait for that in May. So as always, really happy to be able to present you with this update this month, and then feel free to connect with us on any of those links and contact myself or our staff for any ongoing activities. But happy to take any questions, Mr. Dove.
Any board members, any questions? Oh.
Yeah, I just want
Can press it? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to thank you for the Grand Bayou Ridge. That project we've been talking about back when I was parish president, to see you move quickly and get that thing to construction. It is so important to protecting those new federal levees built in Plaquemines. It puts that buffer between that and the levee. So thank you for your effort. That is it's important, but y'all moved through that process so quickly to get it out to construction. So thank you for your hard work on that.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Ledet, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
You've been doing a fantastic job getting the annual plan together. I know it's been real time consuming, so thank you. You and your staff has done a great job getting it together, and I believe our next meeting, we vote on the annual plan, correct?
Correct, yes, in April.
So please, members, if you can make the next meeting, we're going to vote on the annual plan, and then it goes to the legislature, which it goes to the Senate and House Transportation and Natural Resource Committees, and then to the full House, Senate, and in the governor's office, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Duff. Appreciate it.
That's the plan for the plan.
Okay, next is update on the restoration of Raccoon Island, NOAA.
Good morning, Chairman Dove and board members. On behalf of NOAA Fisheries, it's a pleasure to be here and present a status update on the in-progress efforts for the Raccoon Island Engineering Design Restoration Project. My name is Patrick Williams. I'm a Marine Habitat Resource Specialist with the NOAA Restoration Center. It is a pleasure, certainly, to see familiar faces on the board that NOAA has worked with for many decades, but also gives us an opportunity to introduce ourselves to you guys that we perhaps have not worked as frequently in recent years. Before we move off this slide, just to give you a bit of an orientation that I will refer back to a few times throughout the presentation. So this image was provided by CPRA. It is a picture from December of 2023, and we're looking from east to west of Raccoon Island. And so I call your attention to the relative proximity of the sand on the eastern end of the island to the segmented breakwaters, and the connection or overlapping of the sand with the rock groin, which is the straight linear feature with the island itself. So I'll bring that up and point that up in subsequent slides and pictures. Okay, so just a little bit of an orientation, what I'll cover today, a little about who we are, what we're doing on Project Authority. Again, what are we doing and why are we doing it? Introduce you to the project team, and then items 4 and 5 are sort of the meat and potato slides where we'll get into the details sort of the take-homes of where we are right now and where we're going. Okay, a little bit of just orientation background. So again, I work for the NOAA Restoration Center. We're under the NOAA Fisheries within NOAA. The top left gives you a geographic distribution of restoration projects that the NOAA Restoration Center works across the nation. Of course, we do work in the Pacific as well as the USVI and Alaska. But that gives you a relative distribution. That the graphic in the bottom, the darker the color represents more acres. So you can see that NOAA has been involved in as a direct lead or a partner in quite an extensive amount of acreage. And that darker color represents 28,000 roughly acres in Louisiana. That upper bar chart in the top right gives you some of the raw data that's associated with that. Despite the legend in the very top right that indicates Southeast region, these data are in fact for Louisiana. So that gives you an idea of what we've done recently and how much. And the scale at the bottom is thousands of acres. So roughly in 2024, we worked on roughly 3,000 plus acres of activities in restoration activities in Louisiana. So to the Raccoon Island Engineering Design Restoration Project. So it has come about as a direct result of injuries caused to natural resources from the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The Louisiana Trustee Implementation Group finalized the Restoration Plan Environmental Assessment number 8. That was focused on conserving wetlands, coastal, and nearshore habitats. That was finalized in August of 22. And then the Louisiana TIG passed the funding resolution for the Raccoon Island Engineering Design Project in November of 22. And then subsequently, the NOAA team hit the ground running with developing the scope of work, working with our partners, and then issuing the contract for engineering design. And so I'll go through the team members. NOAA is the lead federal implementing agency. And under NOAA, we've issued a contract for engineering, data acquisition, and engineering design services through the 95% design level. Our prime contractor is the Baird-Stantec joint venture. The subcontractors include Moffitt Nickel, Fugro, Aptum, and Search. IEC is also one of our subs in our IDIQ contract, but they are not working directly on the Raccoon Island project. Our co-implementing agencies that are working on Raccoon with us that are integral partners are the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority of Louisiana and the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. Additional partners that are part of the team include the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service because of the shared trust resources that utilize Raccoon Island, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service due to the previous Coastal Wetland Plan Protection and Restoration Act project that was constructed on Raccoon Island, and lastly, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management as it relates to sand resources, in particular those in federal waters. So a little bit of geographic orientation. Raccoon Island is in Terrebonne Parish. It's delineated in the red square. Just south of it is Ship Shoal, one of the borrow areas that I'll talk about. And as I mentioned before, Raccoon Island has got various degrees of significance from an ecological standpoint, but Bear Islands in general are unique in that they provide a unique transitional habitat from the marine environment to the estuarine environment. They do provide significant ecological functions, in particular for brown pelicans, as well as many other bird species. But they also are significant for a number of ecologically and economically important fish, crabs, and shrimp. So just a little bit of time series to help set the stage of the challenges we're facing and the reason why, part of the reason why we're out there to scope the engineering design approach. So in the top left here is the status of the island in 2007. At that point, you can see the island itself in front of, with a breakwater field was very narrow, but it had a very extensive sand spit to the east. Shortly after 2007 and 2008, the island was breached with Hurricane Ike, and the sand spit detached and started migrating over time. And so fast forward 7 more years, and you see here 2 things. 1, the Equipper project constructed on the backside of the island, and 2, the sand spit continued to migrate further and further to the west from Raccoon Island. And then more recently, in 2019 and then again in 22, as shown here in the top right, the sand spit submerged. So it's as the erosional forces act not only on the island, it acts on the sediment transport. Sediment is an issue that I'll touch on in further slides, but it is a driver and a primary consideration on the restoration strategies for barrier islands. And then more recently here, this is a slide, again, courtesy of CPRA, shot very recently in February. This gives you an idea of post-Francine impacts, so Hurricane Francine last year. But as I mentioned on the introductory slide, notice on the eastern end of the island is detaching or starting to migrate further away from the easternmost breakwater field and has become detached to a certain degree from the east-west rock groin. And part of the driver of that is due to the sediment supply. There is a historic sand shoal to the east of the island that was the primary sand source for the island. That sand source is becoming depleted, and I'll show a slide illustrating that. Again, sand is a driver. That's why the islands exist. That's why they develop and change over time. So sand is a key component for the restoration techniques that we evaluate. So this is a queue up or setup for our slides to come, but we looked at primarily 2 borrow locations for sand. We had to first identify adequate volume and adequate quality of sand. So those 2 borrow sources that we evaluated include Ship Shoal Block 88. It's about 9 miles south of Raccoon Island. And then Raccoon Point Shoal to the west of Raccoon Island, which is the former spit that is now submerged as well as assimilated with the area around it. So in general, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, that there's sufficient sand in both of these locations, a sufficient quality of sand in both of these locations. The Raccoon Point Shoal has minimal impact on wave climate, and that is a consideration. We do want to pick a location that does harm to the island. And then Raccoon Point Shoal is the preferred borrow location by CPRA, and that it is consistent with the Louisiana Sediment Management Plan. And part of that plan's consideration is the need for sediment, not only for a single island, but for other islands, including islands to the east, specifically Whiskey Island, as well as other islands. So as great as a resource Ship Shoal is, it is a consideration on where we go for to tap in those sediment resources and where we allocate those for the different strategies to maintain barrier islands overall in Louisiana, not just Raccoon Island. And then lastly, a financial consideration, and I'll note here, any numbers you see throughout the presentation at this point are relative numbers. They're not absolutes. They're at this point primarily based on reconnaissance level analysis. They'll get refined as we go along. But a ballpark evaluation is that they're roughly $30 to $35 million more expensive, as one could imagine, to pump 9 miles from Ship Shoal versus pumping approximately a half a mile from Raccoon Point Shoal. Okay, so these are what I referred to earlier as sort of the meat and potato slides. Most of our work at this point has been the reconnaissance level, and then we have transitioned more recently into the 30% design level. But I'll step you through the relative evaluations that we did at the reconnaissance level with our teams. So with any project, we evaluate the no action, that is alternative 1, and then alternatives 2 through 5. Each of those alternatives, as I alluded to before, include a sand fill component. Sand is a driver of why the islands exist and why they evolve over time. Again, barrier islands in general, they sink, they shrink, and they move. So those are the basic general functions that we're trying to address with the restoration techniques. So each of these sand fill options are included in all the alternatives. All the sand fill options include beach, dune, back barrier marsh restoration, and mounds. And mounds in this case are higher elevations on the backside of the island to create nesting habitat for ground nesting birds, so they're not subject to inundation risk and flooding out the nests. So that's a little bit of new thing we've added on with input from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and lessons learned from the projects like Queen Bess Island and Rabbit Island in southwest Louisiana. Alternative 2 is basically, and so each of alternatives 2 through 5 include maintenance of the existing Gulf breakwaters. So each of alternatives 2 through 5 include rock, but that's maintenance of the existing Gulf breakwaters. Alternatives 3 is sand fill plus maintenance of the Gulf breakwaters plus a bayside living shoreline. What we mean here is a low overflow hardened structure on the bayside, a segmented structure on the bayside, but something that's more conducive for colonization by aquatic organisms. The differentiation between 3 and 4 is the bayside shore feature in alternative 4. Again, includes the sand, it includes maintenance of the Gulf breakwaters, but it is a more traditional rock rubble mound structure on the bayside that is higher, again segmented. Alternative 5 is basically a version of alternative 4, but adding some rock breakers on the Gulf side to reduce some of those gaps in the breakwaters on that eastern end that I talked about, where we're seeing some detachment already. All right, to help you out with and get away from some of the text and give you some visuals to work with. So this is a general slide. We've updated this. The team of our experts are very capable, and they've updated this. But this is just a gross indication. The pink is erosional areas, and blue are depositional areas. And so we see in general erosion on the east of the island and erosion and even more beyond this that we've captured in our bathymetry changes over time. That the shoal that I mentioned before that feeds the island with the sediment source is being depleted. So it's eroding on the east, and the sand on the front of the island is eroding. And then over time, the sand as it migrated to the west and eroded from the island was deposited to the west in the form of a spit, now into a shoal. That area is becoming erosional too, and some of that is moving a little bit more west and north, okay? And those trends are still being validated or verified, I should say, in our more recent data. Okay, so the next couple of slides are a series of screenshots of modeling that's been done at the reconnaissance level. So this is a difference between, in the top left, at year 0, future without restoration action. In the bottom right is year 20 future with restoration action. And so the color indications basically, of course, blue, any shades of blue are water. White is unvegetated, then green, lower elevations, all the way to your hotter colors of red. And you'll see in some subsequent slides, purple colors show up. Those are your highest elevations. And so the take home here is by year 20 with no restoration action, that the island will continue to try to separate from the breakwater field and migrate, and it starts fragmenting substantially. So, and this one is alternative 2. As a reminder, that is sand placement without breakwaters on the bayside, and that also includes maintenance of the Gulf breakwaters. This also shows you the relative implications of mining the Raccoon Point Shoal. Now, keep in mind this illustration is a conservative measure. It assumes mining 100% of that delineated area at Raccoon Point Shoal. We do not feel we will need to mine that entire area, but we'll get more information as we get further into design. Take a look at the year 1 with restoration in the top left, the colors, and then the relative shape and relative size of the year 20 with restoration in the bottom right inset. So it's 2 take-homes in the bottom right. 1, the borrow area infills to a certain degree. And 2, the relative amount and shape of the restored area in year 20 is very similar to what is there in year 1. Of course, we'll have losses over time, but it shows that, and we have the acreage that backs this up, but it shows that there is good performance and a lot of land retention at year 20 with that alternative. Now, the 2 fingers, if you will, that come in of water features that come in from the bayside, those are generic renderings at the recon stage of tidal creeks. And I'll speak a little bit more about some of the advancements that we're doing to refine that as we go into the 30% design. Okay, so this one compares and contrasts at year 20 with restoration. In the top left of alternative 2, that is without bayside rock or living shoreline, to alternative 4 in the bottom right with bayside rock. That is the traditional rock rubble mound structure that's higher and emergent. And again here, notice the relative shapes, scales of the acres at year 20. They are very, very similar. So that is something that we consider in as one of our analyses on compare and contrast. It's not only a cost-benefit analysis, But that is a factor, is cost benefit. And one of our metrics in that, not the only metric by any means, is acreage. This is just, again, a clip at year 20. We get outputs at years 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, and 20. So we're looking at how it performs over time. Okay, this one's pretty busy with a lot of text, but I'll tell you, it's a lot of good take-homes that inform you why we make the next steps that we have made to advance into 30%. So both borrow areas, Raccoon Point Shoal and Ship Shoal, have sufficient quantity and quality of sand. The relative construction costs for all of the alternatives, okay, and are less than roughly $130 million. So that $130 million listing is relative to the more robust restoration alternative that's including rock on the bay side, and it includes mining from Ship Shoal. So it gives you an upper bound of what we're looking at for the most expensive option. And that is consistent with our original projections for under restoration plan number 8. The third bullet is if we were to use Ship Shoal, the cost increase roughly $30 to $35 million. Alternative 4, if that is the one with Bayside Living Shoreline, it increases the cost of about $25 million over without Bayside Living Shoreline. Alternative 5, that is the one with Bayside traditional rock rubble mound structure that's a little bit higher, again segmented. That is about $34–35 million then without Bayside rock. The good news is that all the restoration alternatives, whether it has Bayside rock or not, Bayside Living Shoreline rock or not, all of them make sure the island stays intact. It does not fragment by year 20. Also, all restoration alternatives by year 20 show a substantial increase of acreage at year 20 restored versus current baseline or year 1 baseline. So we're not only buying 20 years of longevity, but we're buying 20 years of longevity plus more acres than we have presently. And then lastly, the last bullet is year 20, or last two bullets. So where are we seeing those gains or maintenance of habitat? We're seeing substantial percentage gains in the beach, dune, and Gulfside intertidal versus the no action or baseline conditions. And then we're also seeing substantial 280 to 300% increase in back barrier habitat. That's intertidal marsh. That's these mound habitats for nesting habitat for birds. All right, so transitioning to more where we are now. We are in the 30% design phase. We transitioned to that phase last fall. We screened down to the following. Of course, no action to evaluate the future without no action or no restoration. And then alternatives 2, these are the same as the recon stage. So alternative 2, sand fill plus repairing the existing Gulf breakwater. Alternative 3, again, including sand fill plus a rock rubble mound living shoreline. So before we looked at various different kinds of living shorelines. Now we're saying a rock rubble mound living shoreline. Low, wide overflow is something that has been done sort of like Quipper did with the rock breakwater at Rockefeller. Also, NOAA constructed a similar overflow rock rubble mound living shoreline over in Pensacola Bay. Alternative 4 is, again, the sand fill options, but with a more traditional segmented, higher rock rubble mound structure on the bay side. This gives you a graphic. I mentioned before we had these tidal creeks on the bay side. Yes, I know it's very hard to see and a lot going on there, but we started adapting the tidal creeks. Those are to help with hydrology, to help with habitat creation, and to help keep from impounding some of the existing tidal habitat on the island, including those within the Quipper project. These sort of oblong features, if you will, more central to the backside of the island, those are these mound features that we're talking about. They like those, the center part of those would be a +6. The strip along the Gulf side is along the Gulf side of beach. The beach would be up to a +8 with a 200-foot crown. And so that, and this one is alternative 3 with the segmented features on the bay side. So this just gives you an idea of some of the detail we're advancing into. And then, so I'll sort of close out with this slide on where we are and where we're going. We are wrapping up all the final data acquisition for the 30% design. We expect that to be completed in the next week or two. We ran into a couple of weather delays with the snow event and then the recent high wind events, but we're wrapping that up, or the team is wrapping that up. The 30% design report, we do, and the design review meeting, we do expect that this year. We're waiting in light of these recent weather delays that we're waiting on an updated schedule, but we will achieve the 30% design report and review meeting. At that juncture, we will screen down to one restoration alternative and carry that forward through 60 and 95% design. We do expect completion of 60% design in 2025. But we projected 95% design completion in this calendar year, but we're a little bit uncertain on that point. We're hopeful, but we'll reassess that possibility once we get the updated schedule. So that, and then of course we'll move concurrently as we're queuing up the 95% and completing that. We'll be working with our co-implementing agencies to work on a restoration plan and environmental assessment for a construction funding request. That, of course, will have to go out to the public for review. But once that hopefully receives favorable input from the public, then we'll be poised for a resolution for the Louisiana TIG for a construction funding request, hopefully in early first quarter or first half of calendar year 2026. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Representative Zarang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Patrick. Good to see you again. How you doing? Just a question. Obviously, this is encouraging. This is important to our coast, and anything that we can do to maintain and reestablish these islands are important in many respects. In looking at it from the reconnaissance phase, have y'all looked at, as y'all are moving forward with the design, the obvious migration is from east to west into the sand, and it's shoaling on the western portion. Is there any discussion in trying to maybe capture or utilize something to maybe take advantage of that to maintain or extend the island, knowing that we're going to have that migration, or if we're just fixed in the specific orientation of what we're trying to restore and protect?
So thank you for the question. And that's been a point of discussion and interest by the team, certainly with the amount of the sand spit that previously existed. And so the short answer is, based on the sediment budget, is such that it's really unrealistic to try to restore it to a point where you have a sand and an elongation of the island. Now, there are measures to enhance retention on the island, such as a terminal groin on the western end. And we've considered that to a certain extent, or the design team has considered that. Under those alternatives 3 and 4 that are being advanced, again, with that encircling on the bay side, those are measures to help retain sand. They are effective, and when you see those screenshots, and of course we'll get refined data, modeling data for the 30% and beyond stages, they are effective in maximizing habitat and sand volume retention, but also an unfortunate side effect of that is you also start seeing some channelization on the outside terminal ends of the island. So, for example, on the east end, Coop Collin area, the historic shoal, as it gets deeper, it will see some more deepening there, and that shows up as a bit of a hot spot. And then also on the west end, when you sequester sand within the island proper itself, then we'll start seeing a deepening of a channel or an inlet formation on that western end. So there's pros and cons, and the team is evaluating the very point you've raised.
Well, obviously, it is encouraging looking at the future without action and looking at what potentially we can retain. It's going to be a good project, but appreciate your work on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Corville.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I was curious, this isn't my neck of the woods, but I kind of pay a little bit of attention to this part of the world. I think you said, and one of your figures shows, there's obviously a migration of material from east to west. When you look at the existing breakwaters and then you look at the new ones I think you guys are proposing on the Back Bay, there seems to be a pretty significant difference in the gap in between the breakwaters. is it the design team's belief that if you narrowed the gap in the existing breakwaters, you might reduce the material moving in, or has that even been discussed? Because it seems like that point has some deposition according to your map here, but right outside of the breakwaters, you're like kind of like you just alluded to, you're losing, that material is getting, I guess, picked up and moved in between those rocks onto the beach and then further to the west. Is that a fair assumption?
So with segmented breakwaters, in particular on the Gulf side, it is always a part of the evaluation to determine the distance offshore the breakwaters are, how you deal with those when they already exist, and then try to maintain those over time. And then also the interaction of not only the distance offshore those breakwaters are, but the relative gap size between within that breakwater field. And so it's not really easy to see in that plan view that I showed, but the sand component does go out to the breakwaters and extend beyond the breakwater. So when you look at it in a cross-section view, which I did not include, it actually goes due to the depth and the angle of repose. It does go out in and around and beyond the toe of the breakwaters, number one. Number two, yes, to your very point, it is trying to strike a balance based on the engineering calculation of not impeding introduction of sand, whatever remains to be introduced from the transport coming from the east, but trying to retain what we place there. And so that is why under the one of the alternatives in 30%, we're looking at adding some additional new breakwaters that we're calling them such, but it's actually with the goal of trying to reduce the gaps on the eastern end to help with retention.
Okay, so I didn't see, so y'all are kind of maybe squeezing down just a bit, and hopefully with the intent to slow that migration. All right, thank you.
Mr. Dalgo.
Yes, sir. Could you put your page 17 back up again? It's the last slide. The last slide. One more.
This one.
Wrong way. The last, that one. So the breakwater, the sand development behind the breakwater, is that natural, or was that deposited there by dredge? And I guess, is that erosion between the two breakwaters, or is?
So yeah, thank you for asking. So two things you're seeing here in the foreground to your question is the Gulf side features, and then on the left is the Quipper project that is still in the process of vegetating. So to your question, sir, so the Quipper project did pump in sand on the front of the island, and then these curvy features, if you will, are typical with breakwaters when you have adequate sediment supply, and so you have what's formed salients and tombolas. These curvy features, and so it is a natural trapping process and byproduct, intentional byproduct or intentional effect of the breakwaters. So yes, you will get some, like I was mentioning to Mr. Carville. So our design would basically fill all the way out to the breakwaters. You will see some erosion of that over time, but you'll see the scalping effect that is traditional design result with breakwaters, as long as you have enough sediment supply. And so as the sediment supply is diminished, or the project gets older and it's not receiving enough sediment, then the beach and dune starts eroding. So at the top of the image there, again on the eastern end of the island, that's the very case what's happening. The beach is eroding away without introducing more sand.
So the sand that's on the backside of the breakwaters there, that was put there by dredge?
It's both natural and pumped. So there was,
Okay.
I don't recall off the top of my head the specific
That's
year
fine.
that the Quipper project did a restoration action to pump in sand. So it's one of those things. Louisiana in general, all the Barrier Islands are sediment limited, sand limited, and so that's why I mentioned early and often that sand is a key restoration component to maintain these islands.
Let me see. So when was there's one set of rocks, the segmented breakwater rocks put in, and how long ago was that when they started this project? It was a Quipper project originally, correct?
So there have been, I would have to get back to you. I'm not going to do this justice with all the timelines. So there's been more restoration activities than just Quipper on the island. There's been some state-only activities, including rock. And then Quipper was the one most recently that did rock breakwaters. They extended their breakwater field. They did maintenance events So this, I can go back to this slide. So this one, if you notice, it's hard to really see, but at the very tip top, those are rock barges. We're doing a maintenance event. So this was the last maintenance event picture supplied from CPRA and NRCS that Quipper did. So we know already out the gate that we're going to have to do another maintenance event as part of our construction event.
Right, you did a maintenance, and then the back marsh was pumped, got to be 15 to 18 years ago.
So what you see there on the left was pumped in the mid-teens, 2014, 2015
Okay,
timeline.
10, 11 years ago.
Yes, sir.
You know, I watched this island very closely, and I watched it from, I think it was originally put in right at 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, I watched it here lately go through Hurricane Barry, and then we had those two Cat 1s and 3 tropical storms, and then we had naturally Ida to the east of it, and lately Francine, and I watched those islands really rebuild themselves, and that island has been pretty stable for all the hurricanes and what have you that's gone to it. Now, so though, would you say that these rocks stabilize that island from drifting to the west, because it's still there? I know the sand drifts, but it seems to stabilize the island the same way with Grand Isle.
So one thing's certain, the rocks will stay where they are.
That's right.
But the sand will move.
That's right.
And so the time series of imagery I showed early on in the presentation showed how the island has changed over time without restoration actions. That included rock maintenance as well as sand. It got thinner and it migrated. So the island will, in general, like all islands will do, is they migrate, they sink, and they shrink. So rock helps as a technique, and in this particular location, rock is a consideration given the fact that it is at the western terminal end of a Bear Island chain, and it does trap and is effective at retaining sand to a certain degree for a certain duration. But putting rock here does not put it at risk of depriving sand from an adjacent island, because there's not one to the west, given that sediment transport is from east to west.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Seeing no questions, thank you for your, I'm sorry, Mr. Bourgeois.
Actually, not a question on this. I think it was a good presentation. I just wanted to take an opportunity to mention something to everyone about NOAA, actually another group of NOAA. Recently, Tim Osborne and a whole group of people at NOAA, Sahid Moganini, Gregory Soroka, Joseph Zhang, Edward Myers, and Fei Yi have been working on a new modeling system called, the acronym is STOFS, and I think it's Surge Tide Operational Forecast System. I may have that wrong. But what it did for the first time is we have some federal models that these guys came in at NOAA. They got with Terrebonne Levee and North Lafourche Levee on the Marganza project, and they actually captured centerline and elevation data for it, and they were able to run operational forecast models, unlike the slosh models, which the Hurricane Center runs, which, for a different purpose, tend to show, flooding all over South Louisiana because they don't take into account the levee systems in place. The STOF models basically ran Hurricane Francine afterwards and properly reflected the lack of flooding because of the levee systems that were in place. So I just wanted to thank Tim Osborne and who organized that and those modelers, because I think this is a real game changer for us to have a federal model that actually recognizes the impacts of all of our flood protection systems in Louisiana. So I was excited about it. I think we're going to continue to work on it. If they can show it for Marganza, they can show it for every other levee system in the state. And I think that's something we need to keep working towards. So thanks to NOAA on that.
Okay, thank you very much. And next, 2025 Parish Matching Award, Brandon Champagne and with CPRA and Joe Johnston with CPRA.
Alrighty, good morning, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brandon Shumpine. I'm a Coastal Resource Scientist Supervisor at CPRA. You might remember me for some previous parish matching program presentations. I'm usually up here, but since then I'm happy to report that our team has actually grown a little bit. Next to me is Joe Johnston, who started last year and has also been helping implement this program along with a few other programs, including the Quipper program. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Skylar Liner, who has also been helping with these programs. She's actually holding the fort today in a few Quipper meetings, so thanks to them, and wanted to welcome them to the team. So today we'll be announcing the 2025 awards for the parish matching program, and also wanted to update y'all on the previous FY 2024 awards that we announced last year. So just the overall purpose of the program, it's to support the implementation of projects that align with our coastal master plan while also working and collaborating with our coastal parishes. And we're doing this primarily by supporting parish-led projects that leverage multiple sources of funding, including federal, local, and private funding. Really, the goal of this program is to get projects on the ground that not only advance local priorities, but also kind of work in tandem with our coastal programs across the state. So for this year, FY 2025, the awards will reimburse up to $6 million of restoration or resilience work, and this is totally funded through the statewide GOMESA allocation. So just to include a slide on our matching funds, and this is really the bread and butter of this program, is that we get to invest money into these projects. And so for last year, for example, we invested $7 million into 7 projects. Cumulatively, those projects brought in almost $30 million of match, which is a collective footprint of about $37 million of investment, which is about like a 5-to-1 match to award ratio. This is a pretty good investment. $7 million, $37 million worth of work projects. I'm no financial guy, but I think that's a pretty good investment. So I wanted to highlight a few projects here. First, both of these projects are in the southwest part of the coast, both of them rock projects. The first being the North Vermilion Bay Shoreline Protection Project. This was an award announced last year for that program. This extended the TV-77 project out in Vermilion Bay by about a mile on both sides of Beauston Canal. You can see the work on the picture there. It's finished up about, I believe, late 2024 last year. Another restoration program we get for this parish matching program is the Rockefeller Shoreline Protection Project. This extended that project upwards of a mile in front of Rockefeller Refuge, and it's definitely in a high area of need. And so both of these projects I wanted to mention too, really another important part of this program is that these projects were pretty shovel-ready when they came in, and we see that as a really important part of this is getting money into projects that can move it really quickly, and you're really using that funding efficiently and quickly. And so I wanted to also go over the timeline for this round of funding. So again, I announced that RFP in September of last year. Proposals were due in December of last year, and then we've been evaluating since then. Our evaluation team consisted of CPRA staff, including people from the planning division and also engineering. I definitely want to thank Joe, as well as Skylar Liner, Errol Naus, Jessica Converse, and Kendake Wallace for their help in reviewing these proposals. So generally what we were looking for is, consistency with our coastal master plan, the amount of matching funds, as well as project feasibility and constructability, acreage and benefits from both ecological and resilience work, and lastly, of course, synergy with our other restoration projects. And so, without further ado, I guess we'll get into announcing the awards for FY 2025.
Thank you. So for this year's parish matching program, there was a total of 11 projects from 7 different parishes. We ended up selecting 6 of those projects from 5 different parishes, with 2 new parishes from last year, Tangipahoa and Terrebonne. This table is showing the parishes, the project names, and the awards that were broken down to $6 million. Vermilion ended up getting $1.265 million. Tangipahoa, $850,000. St. Tammany had 2 projects totaling to $2 million. Lafourche Parish ended up with $1.11 million, and Terrebonne with $775 million. To do a brief overview of the projects, starting off with Vermilion North Shore Phase 2, which Brandon presented Phase 1 earlier, of a success story of breakwaters being added to the North Shore of Vermilion Bay. This one will be continuing eastward from the Boston Canal. Next parish is Tangipahoa with Lee Landing Hydro Project, which is aiming to create 13 spoil bank cuts for over 2 miles of the power line canal, improving drainage from South Ponchatoula and improving hydrologic connectivity with the Manchac Land Bridge. Next are the two St. Tammany projects, defunct habitat restoration, which will construct breakwater protection of the culturally and historic important lighthouse, along with a wood pier for public access. Next is the Mandeville Lakefront project, which is a multifaceted project along the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain. This is going to be restoring and creating a cypress swamp behind a rock berm, providing shoreline and community protection, along with hydrologic improvements with a water control structure to help with urban runoff within that marsh. Next, we have Lafourche Highway 1 terracing projects. This is an extension project from Project South. This one will be going north to protect the highway along with the nearby levees. Last is Terrebonne Parish Bay Raccoon terracing Phase 2. This is a continuation project eastward from existing terracing projects, creating 18,000 linear feet of terraces, which will help reduce wave action and provide emergent habitat. So to highlight the projects for this year, we have over 1 mile of shoreline protection with rock berms, over 40,000 linear feet of terracing, enhancing 475 acres. Storm surge resilience of levees and infrastructure, along with recreational use and cultural protections. And to highlight the program over the past 2 years, there's been a total of $48.64 million, and CPRA has matched about 27% of that with the $13 million, totaling 13 projects over the past 2 years. And with that, we'll take any questions.
We sure appreciate the informative presentation. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Keep it up. Okay, the next one is the federal update, Neal McMillin, DENR.
Let me go full screen. Yeah. This one? Yeah. All right, good morning, board. Thank you for inviting me to present, and we'll look at, I guess, some changes from the new administration in D.C. and kind of talk about appropriations, how that's kicking off. So first wanted to give y'all, I guess, a status update of kind of the nominees that and appointees from the president that have kind of the most resonance with our coastal program right now. On the confirmed side, we have Department of Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. During his confirmation hearing, Senator Cassidy asked him about revenue sharing right off the bat. He expressed that he was familiar with it from his time as governor in North Dakota and liked the concept of, good business development having conservation benefits and that kind of community impact. So that was nice to see him endorse, I guess, the principle. Lee Zeldin's the new EPA administrator. He's definitely leading a deregulation charge, but also announced last week that they would be trying to produce a durable new definition of waters of the U.S. based off the Sackett court decision from the Supreme Court. So that'll be significant for us. And then also confirmed is Russ Vogt, the OMB director. That's the Office of Management and Budget in the White House. And that has a big role to play in deregulation as well, but also major funding decisions, particularly new starts from the Army Corps. So that's hopefully we get some good results there. On the nominated front, NOAA has been nominated their previous acting director, Dr. Neal Jacobs. He's a meteorology guy. That's his background. And then Fish and Wildlife has Brian Nesvik from Wyoming, long career out there. So we'll see if those proceed to confirmation. And then we have not had an announcement on the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, the FEMA Administrator, or the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, which have obviously various roles to play, particularly the core for us. I'm sure most people have heard in the news there's been lots of executive orders. It's becoming definitely a tradition when there's a new president to try to switch around lots of things. I'll kind of give you the highlights of what I think's the key ones for this board. The first one kind of removes a bunch of President Biden's orders, and for us, the climate executive orders, environmental justice executive orders, and kind of the pro-union focus on the infrastructure bill, those have been rescinded. So those, I guess, are no longer, government-wide emphases. On Unleashing American Energy, there's definitely a renewed focus on offshore oil and gas, traditional fuels, and permitting. And this also took out the Green New Deal policies on the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act. So I guess for us, that's more de-emphasizing those principles. National Energy Emergency lays a foundation for truly expedited permitting for specific projects. And, we'll see if Louisiana ones play into that. One I bet a lot of folks have heard is renaming the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. And that's something Governor Landry last week issued signed an executive order to for the state to implement. And obviously, when we talk about GOMESA, that's something we'll have to adjust accordingly. And then several projects such as Morganza to the Gulf, and even feasibility study Alexandria to the Gulf would need to be changed accordingly. There's a new National Energy Dominance Council, and that's led by Secretary Burgum. And one of their first visits was to Plaquemines Parish for this Venture Global announcement. So Louisiana Energy is getting a lot of attention there. And then there's a goal to do more deregulation at a 10-to-1. Regulations removed to 1 added. The previous Trump administration did about a 5-to-1. And then we've also seen a memo from President Trump to withdraw kind of all areas of the Outer Continental Shelf that aren't currently under a wind lease from wind leasing, and pausing and reevaluating how they do permitting and approvals for offshore and onshore wind. So that was a day one memo, and so it's definitely, changed the conversation in D.C. about wind, and I guess it's prioritization. Another announcement kind of from the new administration that was a win for the coastal program in particular was the Department of Defense revoked its project labor agreement mandate that it had put on construction projects, including those for the Army Corps, over $35 million. West Shore Lake Pontchartrain had one project have to come to agreements with the PLA last year, but it seems like that's the only one that was caught up in that during its implementation last year. Executive Director Ledet testified to Congress about this and how it could really add some delay and cost and just kind of reduced opportunities for Louisiana's workforce makeup. So we were able to get that targeted relief, and so I guess for the foreseeable future we won't have those type of mandates apply. So it took right after I presented last time in January, we kind of had some clarification on new roles on the Hill. I want to mention that Senator Kennedy is now chairman of Energy and Water. That covers Army Corps appropriations. So I guess that's fantastic. He's the top dog on that. Congresswoman Letlow left the Energy and Water Subcommittee and changed to what used to be State and Foreign Ops. So I guess it's rebranded. So that was just during some shuffling. And then we've also had, departures from two key House committees that really cover the majority of our policy issues. So Congressman Carter left Transportation and Infrastructure for Energy and Commerce, and Congressman Graves departed both that and House Natural Resources. So we'll have to, still be active there, but without kind of the easy member on the committee to jump in. And then this past Friday, Congress passed fiscal year 25 appropriations through a continuing resolution that was flat funding, and there's several takeaways. First off, there's no congressional report language. We had something in there about how GOMESA funds should be analyzed, so we may have to try that again. But also, they directed the Corps to do a work plan on all its funding. And as you'll see in this chart, I guess all these except one are Army Corps earmarks that we had that I guess are not to be fulfilled unless the Corps chooses to work plan some of that. And they may be able to do hopefully a good portion of that, but very unlikely to be all given just kind of the numbers. And so there's $150 million in coastal earmarks that we currently don't have. Maybe they can work plan some of that. And so we'll probably approach the next year. The advice is just to kind of re-ask for this year. And so that, I guess we'll move forward with that. And I guess some of the members of Congress in our delegation are already asking for appropriations requests due next Friday. They may postpone that, but we're right back into it because they don't know when the deadlines will be, since this was passed 6 months into a fiscal year. The Army Corps also released Friday its work plan for the recent disaster supplemental it passed in December. We were trying to see if Hurricane Francine affected projects could get some funding. Basically, the answer is no. There was some Louisiana funding through the MRNT account that Leader Scalise really worked primarily to increase for us, and so that can address some levee slides and a couple specific projects, but no project-specific funding from that opportunity, unfortunately. And then I guess in the previous set talked about this budget reconciliation, which is allowing Republicans opportunity to pass something kind of on a party line basis to really dramatically change a lot of spending priorities. We talked about kind of the Senate and the House had different versions, and for a while it looked like the Senate's strategy was top. They were able to pass theirs, which is a more limited one. It didn't deal with the tax cuts. But I guess that was motivating to the House, and the next week the House did their, what President Trump calls one big beautiful bill. So with that passing, that was a big win for Speaker Johnson. A lot of folks were skeptical that that would come through so quickly. And so that's really the main action right now. And so the committees are now trying to fulfill the, I guess, the goals of this resolution that they passed. And so, again, that'll do energy, border, defense, and tax cuts. So we'll see what comes through there. And then finally, the Corps has opened a comment period for last year's WRDA. There's a few virtual sessions detailed there if you want to participate, but they also have a rulemaking, a docket, and that's something CPRA has commented in the past. We have 10 plus provisions there, and so we'll try to put something together that hopefully guides their implementation properly. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
All right, any questions? That's it. Yes. Mr. Corville.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. Thank you, Mr. McMillin. In the past, you gave us updates, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Ledet or both of you guys or whoever wants to take a stab at it. But I was just looking for an update. At the time, we were kind of concerned about that $10 million floating around from the Corps of Engineers, and idle money seems to become lost money. I was just looking for maybe an update if either of you guys had an update on that.
Sure. And you're referencing the Southwest Coastal Project?
Yeah, it was, I think it was maybe $10 million of rocks that were planned, or $20 million. I hate to shortchange it. Maybe it's 30. We'll keep going up, but yeah, rocks along Rockefeller shoreline.
I can give the money status, and then maybe Glenn can give Mr. Ledet can give the project status. So Southwest Coastal got $286 million from the infrastructure bill for the non-structural home elevation portion. And then in fiscal year 23, Congressman Higgins and Senator Cassidy got $10 million to start designing 4 miles of rocks shoreline from Freshwater Bayou to Calcasieu Pass, I believe. So that was given in, I guess, late 2023 or 2024. So I guess that's ongoing. And the Corps repurposed $20 million infrastructure bill dollars in FY24 for constructing 2 miles of those 4 that they were designing. So that's what they currently have, that money, and I guess that they're working on it. As you saw on the approach slide, Senator Kennedy had gotten $20 million to presumably finish the miles 3 and 4. That's retracted right now. Hopefully we can get that. But that Congress made clear in this bill that previously awarded work would not be taken away. So previous earmarks, I guess that wasn't technically an earmark, but I guess that's far enough in the past that it should be pretty secure is my assessment. But where it is on currently spending, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Mr. Corville. Mr. Ledet.
Thank you, Mr. Alford. Yeah, Mr. Corville and Mr. Neal, to y'all's point, so we, as Neal just explained, we have $30 million in federal funding available. We have partnered with the Corps to do the design work so that we can provide that to them, and then they will implement that construction. And so that activity started. We presented that to y'all at the October board meeting, so we are rocking and rolling on that, and then hopefully to be putting rock on the ground this year as early as September. And so that's the $30 million. We were hopeful that we would get this additional 20, and we would be able to go to bid for a $50 million project. Obviously, that will probably be delayed on the federal side. What you'll see in our draft annual plan and hopefully in the final is the continued commitment for Southwest Coastal. So we will still do what we call that work-in-kind credit, where we either do design or eventual design and construction, and then that counts as our 35% cost share for these ecosystem restoration components, of which the key priority is to finish Rockefeller. So to your point, that $30 million will get put on the ground this year with that joint work that the Corps and CPRA are doing, and then hopefully we get this $20 million appropriation back.
And so we're feeling pretty good about September?
Yes, we are. Yep. No, we got it. We got a commitment from the state and the feds to get that done.
Fantastic. Nice work.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, seeing no more questions, we sure appreciate it, Neal, as usual. Great job. Okay, with that, we're going to move into executive session. In an executive session is the status of 2 pending lawsuits relating to the Mid-Baratow Sediment Diversion. Gordon E. Dove, CPRA Chairman. Juris Oysters, LLC, Amapure Processing Incorporated, Matthew Tesvich, International Marine Mammal Project of Earth Island Institute, Alert Project of Earth Island Institute, and Earth Island Institute versus United States Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. National Marine Fisheries Services, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, docket number 2:24-CV 00106, U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Louisiana, intervener, defendants, Environmental Defense Fund, Louisiana Wildlife Federation, Orleans Audubon Society, and Cajun Fishing Adventures. Subject matter of the federal litigation, plaintiffs allege claims against the United States Army Corps of Engineers for violation of the National Environmental Policy Act and the Administrative Procedures Act, and against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Marine Fisheries Service for violations of the Endangered Species Act. and also Plaquemines Parish Government versus Coastal Protection Restoration Authority, case number 68-526, Division B, 25th Judicial District Court, Parish of Plaquemines, State of Louisiana. Intervenors: Richard Blink, Foster Crapel, Kevin Crossan, Alicia Dordor, Timothy Dordor, Ryan Lambert, Michael Mariana, and Harold Hunter White III. Subject matter of the state court litigation: parishes allege that CPRA did not comply with local ordinance relative to the construction of the Mid-Barrett area sediment diversion. And then we need a motion to enter into executive session. We have Mr. Bourgeois making a motion to enter into executive session. All in favor? We have a second by Mr. Davis. All in favor?
Go through public comments before the vote.
All in favor? Aye. And then we will take public comments on this matter.
It has to be a,
What's? Okay, it's got to be by voice vote, okay.
public comments first.
Okay, so we'll take public comments first. Are there any public comments on this matter? Any going once, twice, three times? No public comments, so we'll have a voice vote. And Madam, would you call the roll?
Chairman Dove,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Bornay, Lieutenant Governor Nungesser,
Yes.
Mr. Alford, Mr. Jewell, President Jewell,
Yes.
Congressman Gao, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Bourgeois, Mr. Hidalgo,
Yes.
Mr. Carville,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Representative Zarang,
Yes.
Senator Henskins. You have a quorum.
And it's unanimous. Unanimous, back to the quorum, and it's unanimous.
Executive session. So turn off the broadcast.
Now we have to turn off the live feed.